The holidays are upon us, and in this video, I'm going to show how I make these quick and easy wine bottle or whiskey bottle holders. They're a perfect gift to take along with a nice bottle of wine to friends and families. In a few days, I've got to get on an airplane and fly halfway around the world for some meetings, and I want to make one to take to my friend overseas. So in this video, I'm going to show how I put it together and how you can make one too. Like I said, quick and easy. The wood species I'm using are wenge, bloodwood, and maple. And you can really use any wood that looks nice together in combination. But I think that the dark brown and almost black tones of the wenge and the red of the bloodwood, kind of offset with a stripe of maple, will look really nice together. Our design is very straightforward and really doesn't take much wood at all. So top to bottom, you're looking at about 9 inches, and side to side, about 4 inches. We need an 1.5 inch hole, and we're going to put a nice radius on here. I believe it's a 2-inch diameter radius. And then from the side profile, again, it's 9 inches tall, roughly. And then 3/4 inch wide is perfectly fine. And then we just want a 45-degree angle cut on this end. And that lets this balance and counterbalance with the bottle. So this is what we're going to put together and build. I'm just going to mark each piece at about 10.5 inches, draw a line, and then cut it down with the miter saw. For the design, I really want the red to pop and be a key accent, and I'm going to put it right down the middle. So I think I'm going to cut a piece about 1 inch wide out of the bloodwood. I'm going to cut some much thinner strips of the maple, and then I'll cut the wenge down so that it makes up the difference in width. Now comes the hard decision. I've given myself a couple of options here. I cut really thin little filler strips, so this is option A. I also cut slightly larger strips, so this is option B. So now I have to have a think and figure out if I like the wider strip or the narrow strip. Or allow me to introduce option C. After playing around with the pieces, the order, and just kind of shuffling things around, I kind of came up with this offset and asymmetrical design, which I think I quite like, with the bloodwood and then the maple stripe and then the wenge. And both of these blanks are, by coincidence, just a hair over 4 inches wide. So I think this might be the pattern. We'll still put our hole up here, but I kind of like that asymmetrical design. So this is what I'm going with. And as glue ups go, this one is really straightforward. Little clamps, little Titebond 3. I don't expect this to get wet, but I have it, and better safe than sorry. And then we'll get it in the clamps. I don't know how I feel about these glue bots. I'm curious what everybody thinks. Do you like them? Do you hate them? I really have mixed opinions. I kind of just like my squeeze condiment bottles, which put out a little bit of a finer bead of glue, but they give you really precise placement. You do get the wider blade, and in theory, this doesn't dry, but I still have problems with glue crusting in the tip. I'm always having to clean it, so. But I am curious what you think. So leave a comment down below. Not that I'm trying to get engagement or anything like that. No. It does help if you watch these videos. The algorithm rewards completion more than likes and subscribes. I'm not really doing this to make a living, but it is nice to put something out into the world that people seem to like. So I do get some edification out of people interacting with the videos. So there you go. There's your engagement bait. And then since these will get cut down to size once we are all glued up, the positioning doesn't matter so much. We just need to get some pressure on them. Now we just let it dry. It's been a day and the glue is dry, so I'm going to get this out of the clamps and then I'm going to do a couple of light passes on each face with the planer so that I get everything all nice and flush. And then we can work on the shape of the bottle holder. If you're not doing a fancy glue up, this is an even quicker project. But even trying to come up with something a little more than average, it doesn't take very long. And this would have been ready to take out of clamps yesterday. I just ran out of time. So we'll get all of the glue squeeze out cleaned up, we'll run it through the joiner and the planer, we'll get these nice and flat and flushed up, then we'll get our shape marked onto them. I've got both pieces flushed up and trimmed down so they're nice and parallel. Got a little bit into that bloodwood sapwood there. So those are good, and they are both just about the right width. They are a 1/16 under 4 inches. So I need to use my compass to mark my radius, and my compass is at 2 inches, so it'll give me a 4-inch radius, but that's a little too big. So I'm gonna find center so I know where to mark my pieces. And I'm gonna use the trick, since it's a weird number to divide in half, where I start with a number and then I take it to another whole number. So I go from the 1-inch mark to the 6-inch mark, and then that's 5 inches. I know 2.5 inches, so 1, 2.5 is my center line. So that's a quick way, and now we can come to the apex here, get our compass point set, and scribe our arc that we need to take off with our bandsaw. The other thing I want to do is I want to use my 1.5" Forstner bit, and I want to figure out where it looks good so that I balance the meat that I leave behind all the way around. And so I'm just going to eyeball it. I could absolutely get out rulers and calipers and measure it, but I think that's good enough. And I'm just going to give myself a little tap for a divot. And then I know that is where I need to drill my hole. Now I'll go drill this hole first before I take this off in case I want to change things around a little bit and maybe lower the radius or make another change. So order of operations, I like to mark my radius, then I drill my hole, and then I knock off that corner. Now that I have the holes drilled, my next step is to use the bandsaw to take the corners off, staying just outside the line I marked. And then I'll use the sander to get everything to the final curve. The last big machining operation is just to put a round over on the front and back and in the hole. And I like to do this before I cut it to final length and put that bevel on it, because I'll round over all the way down, and then when I cut that 45-degree bevel with the miter saw, it'll give a nice crisp line, and that'll let it sit nicely and hold the bottle and act as a counterbalance. So I've got the router set up, I'll do a quick round over, and we'll be able to do some sanding, get the final cut on it, and then these will be ready for finishing. Routers are the one tool in the shop that really make me pucker, but if you go slow and use something to keep your hand away from that spinning bit of death, it's not too bad. So I've got these rounded over, and I'm going to do a little hand sanding. I'm not going to show you that because nobody wants to watch sanding. And we're pretty much done. Once we get these sanded and we get them all sanded up through 220, we'll make that final cut and we'll get some finish on them. In the plans, I want these to be about 9 inches tall. Again, it's not a critical dimension, but now that I've got all of my shaping and sanding done, I am going to mark where I want to put my bevel cut on both of these. And then I will take them over to the miter saw and we will make that final cut. By doing all of the shaping first, I get a nice round over and I'll get a super crisp edge there. I wouldn't have had to worry about catching it or nicking it and messing up the nice crisp flat foot with the router table. So let's get these over to the miter saw station and get them cut. I forgot to hit record, but imagine a miter saw making a 45-degree bevel cut on the bottom of the bottle holder. And so that's what we end up with. And the way it works is we take our bottle holder, and it works better with wine bottles I've found. Whiskey bottles are hit or miss, and then it just counterbalances. Super stable with wine bottles, pretty much across the board I've found. Hit or miss on whiskey bottles. This one seems to work okay. I have other bottles that don't work so well because the counterbalance just isn't right, but this is the idea. To finish the bottle holders, I'm going to use Odie's oil. I believe it's considered a hard wax oil. The reason being, I'm going to be traveling in just a few days, and I want the finish to be cured. And I think according to the instructions, this only needs 24 hours to be fully cured. And I don't have that long to apply other finishes, you know, Danish oil or polyurethane and do the multiple coats. So Odie's oil it is. So let's get this on the wood. Just gonna mix the Odie's oil up before we get it onto a white Scotch-Brite pad to apply. I know the instructions say use it very sparingly. I have found putting a little bit more on tends to work better. I guess it just means I'm using more of the product than they recommend, but I've had much better results doing that. And then we're just working it in. I like to leave it a little thick going on, then I'll let it sit for somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour. I don't see a huge difference between letting it sit for 45 minutes and an hour and letting it sit for hours and hours. But I don't really know that that gives you a better finish. And I mean, look at that. Putting finish on any wood, it just brings out that, luster and it looks amazing. And you certainly don't have to use a hard wax oil for this. Really, any finish is gonna work that you particularly like. You could use a polyurethane, you could use curing oil. There's lots of stuff you could use. And if I had more time, I've got some new products that I'm curious to test, so I would absolutely give those a go. But in this case, I'm kind of racing the clock to get ready. I feel like that's something that happens to all of us around the holidays with commitments of family and just life, so you do what you've got to do to get everything done, and then you don't worry too much about the rest. And I think that bloodwood with the wingay look really nice together. And I really like that little maple detail separating the two woods. But the great thing about this project is you can use really any wood that you like. Just cut up some pieces, glue them together, cut the shape out. Easy to make and practical. But yeah, quick, easy to make. They look great. So I'm gonna let this sit on here for, like I said, 45 minutes to an hour. Come back and wipe it down really good. And then these will be pretty much done at that point. Enough time has passed and I am going to work on taking off as much of this Odie's oil as I can. I'm using a clean white microfiber rag. I know Odie's says to use a cotton towel, that microfiber takes too much of the oil off, but I have not found that to be the case. I'm using these really thin microfiber rags, so they're not maybe as absorbent as the big thick plush ones, but I find them to do a really good job. It's always so rewarding when you get the finish on, You see that transformation in the wood. And just an observation, like I quite like this color combination of this really dark wenge and this bloodwood. Now, I got a little bit of the bloodwood sawdust because it is very, almost like a pigment onto this maple. And so it's not quite the crisp, like white that you get with the maple, but I still really like that pop that it gives, the separation between the bloodwood and the wenge. And there we go. I'll let these cure for about 24 hours, and then they will be ready to pack up and go on the trip. So that's my wine bottle or whiskey bottle holder. It's a simple and easy project that people really appreciate. It's also a great way to use up smaller pieces of wood that aren't big enough for bigger projects, and they make a nice impact in this small form factor. I like to make them and give with bottles that I take to friends and family's houses, things like that. It's a great holiday gift or anytime gift really. It also makes a nice stocking stuffer or is good for a white elephant. So if you've made it this far in the video, I sure do appreciate it and would like it if you gave me a thumbs up. And if you like the kind of things that I do on this channel, maybe consider subscribing. And to my friend Andrew, I'll see you in a few days. Gone by.